Now, all right, I'm writing here. Dear, yeah, all right, I got the keys. Bella. Okay. And what did you want to say? What?
Somebody's watching.
Oh, I was just sending an email for Apple. She has a hard time with the keyboard, but we'll have to save that for later. She tells me somebody's watching, and there you are. Well, guess what? It is, whoop, sit down, Apple. It is time, actually, for episode number 13 of
Ask the Breeder.
And if you're crying in the background, it's because the other dogs want to take part in it too. But let's get right to it. We don't have all that much time. Well, actually, we have a lot of time, but I'm going to pretend we don't have that much time. Our first question comes all the way from Australia. Wow, Australia, it's like the other side of the world. Well, I suppose if you're in New Zealand, it doesn't seem like that far away. But from here, in the United States, that's on the other side of the world. So, and then because it's on the other side of the world, it's upside down. So, I turn it around so I can read the question. So, from Australia, Lilia would like to know what my thoughts and hopes are on the mitral valve surgery that is being done in Japan these days. I have to say I don't have any personal experience with the surgery. It's relatively new, but it really provides quite a bit of hope because Cavaliers are very definitely subject to heart disease, especially when they are in their advanced years. But not having any personal experience, I have to pretty much go by what I've read and what I've seen. And in terms of that, I can tell you a few things that are very hopeful. This surgery can actually increase the dog's average survival time, in other words, how long they would live after the surgery, by anywhere from almost 1 year up to almost 2 years. Now, that doesn't sound like an awful lot, but considering the lifespan that dogs normally have compared to humans, it's kind of like somebody coming up to me and saying, well, we're going to do this surgery on you. It's kind of complicated, but it'll increase your life by maybe about 15 years. Well, that's really pretty remarkable, and I would think seriously about it. It is very costly at the moment. The estimates that I've seen, and I have no personal experience with it, but the estimates that I've seen range anywhere from about $20,000 up to maybe $50,000. A lot of it depends on how far you have to travel. If you have to go to Japan from the United States, that would be pretty costly. I have to say also that the University of Florida in the United States is now performing that surgery. One of the problems with that, of course, is that they have a very long wait list. The last estimate I saw was for a 6-month wait time, and I believe they were not taking any new entries on the wait list at this time. So essentially, it's extremely costly. Not everybody can afford it. It does provide some hope for keeping our pets with us for a significantly longer amount of time after they develop heart disease. A lot of it depends on what stage they're at and how old they are. But I would say that it really provides more hope than anything, because there are a lot of developments in the veterinary field that would be costly and hard to come by in the beginning, but become more common, and then the price comes down, and they even get better at it. So I would say for maybe the next generation, not for me, but for the next generation, we have hope that there is an alternative to just medicating our dogs and hoping they live long enough. So my advice to you at this point, if you are considering having that surgery done on your dog, would be to first make certain that you are able to afford it, and then speak to your vet. And based on what stage of the disease your dog is at, how old your dog is, what the life expectancy would be after the surgery, you take that all into account and decide if it's a good idea for your dog. Our second question comes from, much closer. This is from like right down the road, New York City. Margin BS, no, not BS, I'm sorry. Margin BX asks, I've seen quite a few dogs walking around during the summer, and there's hot pavement, and they have booties on their feet. And Margin would like to know, do you think that's a good idea? I think it depends an awful lot on your particular circumstances. If you are in a citified area where you don't have grass to walk your dog on, and if you are in a part of that city that doesn't provide a lot of shade, and the pavement is a dark color so that it absorbs, there go my glasses, so that it absorbs the sunlight and gets very, very hot, it may not be a bad idea. From what I read, and again, this is something I don't have personal experience with because our dogs spend almost all of their outdoor time on our own property, which is safely fenced, and it's a turf surface, so we don't have to worry about it. But from what I've heard, the bigger worry would be areas where in the wintertime they treat the ice with rock salt, because that can be very damaging to their sensitive little paws. And so you might want to look into booties. I've never used them. Our third question comes from Lisa. And Lisa would like to know, how many dogs have we raised? Now, we've been breeding for almost 30 years now. We've had Cavaliers longer than that, but our breeding started almost 30 years ago. And my records from the early years are not the most accurate. So, but I did, to try to answer the question, I did go through the records, and to the best of my ability, I believe I can say that we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 33 litters in that amount of time, which actually is not an awful lot of litters. As breeders go, we are probably a much lower volume breeder than most of the ones you'll find. But with that 33 litters, I found records that would indicate somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 puppies that we have raised. So I guess I have a little experience there. Next question comes from Karen. Those of you who have been following this channel for a while know that when we bred Apple a few months ago, we used two sires, and one was kind of a line breeding, was from one of her ancestors, and the other dog was one that we selected because the other one was old enough that we had to worry about the potency of his sperm. And with the problems that we had with that litter, the only one that survived was Sherlock. But we still had to do DNA testing because we didn't know which one of those boys. So I am very happy to announce that the winner of the Daddy Lottery is not the one that was related to Apple, but the other one that we selected. His name was George. Here's a picture of George winning some of the awards that he has won as time goes by. He was bred by a highly respected breeder in the UK and imported into the United States, owned or co-owned by a friend of ours who is a breeder in the U.S. And if you look at his size and his proportions, there are a few things that you should note. That we like those short coupled proportions because Apple, if anything, is a little bit long, and that would kind of help that. Apple has excellent movement, especially in her front part of her body. But if you look at the curvature in his rear legs, George really does seem to have all the qualities that we wanted to have to complement what Apple has. Here's a picture of George on the move. And you can see right there that the movement is excellent, and especially if you look at those rear legs and how they're driving and pushing him forward in the ring. It's really something that I think is going to help make Sherlock a good show dog. Our fifth and last question comes from J-Boys. J-Boys, you've had questions before. Thank you once again. J-Boys would like to know, how do you train a Cavalier to retrieve a ball? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Sherlock, who has no training in retrieving at all, and I'm going to show you some of the first steps that we would take. So, I have to just pause this to get reset up for a second. Good boy. Okay, I have Sherlock here. The first stage is very simple. All you need is any toy. A ball is probably the best if that's what you're looking to get him to retrieve, but any toy that the dog likes already, and it's important it's one that the puppy likes. I also have a pocket full of small treats because a lot of reward is necessary. My first goal is to get him to chase it, and that's all. And I think he'll do that because he likes this ball. Sherlock, go get it. Go get it. And I'm going to go over to him because he won't come to me. He has to be trained for that. And Sherlock, treat. Sherlock, good boy. Good boy. Praise and treat. I grab the ball and I repeat that. Get it, Sherlock. Get the ball. And if he comes in my direction at all, which may take like 20 throws and may take, in this case, 2 throws, I give him a treat and I say, I say, good boy. If he just comes back this way, Sherlock, get the ball. Sherlock, bring it. Bring it. Good boy. You can see that he knew he was going to get a treat, so he dropped the ball. And that's like half the battle. So just to summarize, step 1 is just to get the dog to chase the ball or toy and reward and praise. Step 2 is to get the dog to come back some way in your direction with it. Step 3 would be to get the dog to actually come right back to you, which he's actually doing already, again with treats and praises. And the final step would be to get him to go get the ball, bring it back, and drop it right by you. And if you just, the secret, by the way, like any training, is not to kill the dog a few minutes a day, but to be consistent, lots of treats and praises, small treats so the dog doesn't get overfed. Right? You're a good boy.